Normal Foundation, which is where it's happening on Friday night, to taste and fingers crossed strike it lucky with some. Welcome to one of my very favourite weeks of the year, as Dan really likes wine, and Dan in particular prepare for the Cape Wine Auction. It's an event I've been involved with now for 4 years, and it really is something incredibly special. It's the brainchild of Mike Ratcliffe, more on him a little later, who together with an extraordinary team of philanthropists with a shared interest in wine have created something very similar to the Napa Wine Auction, which is famous and is the benchmark for philanthropy and wine around the world. The one in the Cape might not raise quite as much money, given the Americans have US dollars to play with, but the sums I think are still staggering. Last year, 17 million rand, and all of that money, every cent, goes out to charities across the winelands, and every charity is involved in some aspect of life in the winelands. There are some terrific causes. I look at an organisation like Steps, which is out near Creation, where young kids who are often children of workers in the farms are getting access to education, to childcare, to pastoral care. Just one example of many of these organisations that do such a terrific job. And that's what makes this such a great event. Yes, it is loads of fun. Yes, you drink some fantastic wine. The food is great and it's really entertaining, but the important part is that loads and loads of much needed money is being raised for causes in South Africa, and I think we all know just how much we need to help South Africa at the moment to head forward in the right direction. So I'll be back there again this weekend, and we've got two terrific events. There's the auction itself. That's going to be on Saturday. It's at Buitenverwachting in the Constantia Valley. We were at the Constantia Valley at Klein Constantia a few years ago. We're back there now. Love Buitenverwachting, love their wine. Great menu, lovely view from the restaurant looking out over the vines. And this year, loads of famous people, loads of well-heeled people coming together as I try and flog them lots of wine and great experiences. And how about some of the experiences for this coming year? If memory serves, you could be off to the Grand Prix in Monaco and have dinner at Jan Hendrik's restaurant. Jan, the Michelin-starred South African restaurant in Nice. I had dinner there last week after working at the Laureus World Sports Awards. It is magnificent. There's the chance to spend a week in a private resort for 16 people on the coast of Madagascar. There's a villa in Italy. There is a trip to the opening of the British Film Awards and the Film Festival in London. You could be in Oregon in America for a private wine tasting tour. There's a trip to the Tour de France with a Cervelo racing bike thrown in. Just so many incredible lots, and all of them have loads of wine attached to them, and the wine is quite sumptuous. There's a whole range of extraordinary stuff. But then this year there is also the barrel tasting. So Saturday you've got the main auction with Nedbank Private Wealth at Buitenverwachting. The Friday night, it's the team from American Express who come on for the barrel tasting. Now this is great for a number of reasons. It's a bit more relaxed, you wander around, you taste wine out of the barrel, and a whole lot of great South African winemakers have produced wine specially for the evening, or have brought along something they have very little of but are happy to share for a greater cause. And not only do you taste it, but you can buy items that evening. They're often more inexpensive than what goes on the next day, where prices can go right up. I sold a single bottle of wine a few years ago for 1.3 million rand. These are the kind of numbers you're talking about. Friday, a lot more accessible. And so that's what I'll be looking at to make some purchases for. But also, it's wine that I'm going to be focusing on for this week's episode of Dan Really Likes Wine. And I've got a selection of wine. All of this wine is linked to the Friday night barrel auction, and your chance to buy some wine, should you be lucky enough to be at the Normal Foundation, which is where it's happening on Friday night, to taste and fingers crossed strike it lucky with some of the lots. And the first of those lots is a lot that comes from a brand that's maybe not quite as well known as some others, but it's a terrific collaboration between South Africa and California. So the label here is Capensis, and if you're Latin, I think it's Latin, is good, Capensis from the Cape, and that's mostly true. It's a beautiful label. I've done it up very nicely indeed. I love this minimalist design, and just 1,000 cases of this made, and it's made, as I say, mostly from the Cape, but there is some American influence, and it comes in two forms. Capensis is a joint venture. Anthony Beck, he's one of the Graham Beck directors. He's based over in America. And then Barbara Bank, who's best known from Jackson Family Vineyards. And they've come together to make some Chardonnay here in South Africa. The grapes are sourced from different parts, I think some of them from the Overberg, different parts of the Cape, and then with some local winemaking knowledge, they produce this particular Chardonnay. Not huge numbers, and just the white wine, with a focus very much on producing something rather special. As you can probably hear, there's a little bit of James Earl Jones, a little bit of Grace Jones gravel to my voice at the moment. It's the price you pay for spending your life on aeroplanes. Picked it up on the way back from Monaco, travelling to these third world countries, but recovering quickly in South Africa in time for the weekend. It does mean though that my nose is just a little blocked, and so I thought, well, I'm not sure I'll be able to pick up much here, but no such fears. Even a touch of travel flu is no match for the rich and sumptuous nose of this Capensis Chardonnay. And it's a nose you might almost miss at first glance because you're so keen on looking at the colour. That's a perfect golden Chardonnay. But even with a pair of plugged nostrils, that's lovely. Yesterday was my parents-in-law's 45th wedding anniversary, staggering achievement in today's age, and breakfast, along with some smoked salmon, with some big warm buttery croissants. Don't tell my nutritionist, I might have had 2 of them. And that's exactly the mouthful you get, that fresh, toasty, buttery croissant that I absolutely love in Chardonnay, but still that nice bit of citrus flowing through as well, which probably picks off of the lemon we saturated everything in yesterday, given it was a Greek brunch and the Greeks have lemon with everything. That's really, really nice, and it's a really, really nice bottle to look out for on Friday night at the Normal Foundation, because you have the 13, the 14 and the 15, so this is the third of those. It's a lot of 3, and that's something, if you're a Chardonnay fan, it's a little different. American expertise meets South African terroir with some local flair. That's a great addition to the American Express barrel tasting for Friday night. Then to wine number 2 for this week, and this is proper South African aristocracy, where there was a hint of America to the previous lot. This has plenty of Italian going for it. This is the Dalla Cia, and you've almost certainly drunk some Dalla Cia wine, or at least wine inspired by the name Dalla Cia, because Giorgio Dalla Cia is the man who gave us the Melas Rubicon many years ago. The Rubicon continues, and continues to blaze a standard for red blends in South Africa, but Giorgio himself with his son George is now making wine under the Dalla Cia label. The Giorgio is superb, and then there is this Pinot Noir, and it's a wine I last had over lunch about 3 or 4 months ago with Mike Ratcliffe, and again I'll come back to him a little later, but Mike's Vilafonté setup is right next door to the Dalla Cia setup in Stellenbosch, which is next to a place called Pane e Vino, which, if you speak Italian, means I'm not getting out of here anytime soon, and certainly not before I've had 3 bottles of wine and 6 courses of Italian food. It is your typical Mediterranean feast of indulgence, one of those feasts where you leave feeling good and happy, not, oh my goodness, I'm never going to walk again. And quite often you'll find Giorgio in there, holding court, but in the very best way. He's a man who spends a lot of time in Tuscany, goes back, touches base, a lot of winemaking friends back in Italy, and that is infused both into the work with his son and partner, and the work that they in turn do with their wine. And this Dalla Cia wine will also be available on Friday night at the barrel tasting. Exactly what's up for grabs, I'll tell you in a moment. First of all though, I want to see what it tastes like. I've been drinking quite a lot of Pinot Noir of late, and the majority of it has been from the Hemelanada Valley. Not surprisingly, they're making some sensational Pinot Noir up there. But it is Pinot Noir in that region that tends to be very much the lighter style. It just sits delicately on the palate and is delightful to drink. This has got a little bit more substance to it. It's a Stellenbosch Pinot Noir, a slightly warmer area, and it's just got a little bit more depth, a little more little more bite to it, I suppose, and it's again a really nice wine. And what I love about South Africa is how we can take the same grape and based on the terroir, the climate, even the type of winemaker and his or her preference in style, we're finding a grape that can be interpreted in so many different ways. And I love this interpretation of the Pinot Noir. It's probably slightly more classic Burgundy. Love the colour. Love the nose, which again, despite the fact that I've got a bit of flu, I'm getting a nice big whiff of, lots of leather and cigar coming off that. So I'll be looking out for this, as I will the previous one, as I probably will all of the wines on Friday night. What is up for grabs from the Dalla Cia lot? It is 3 magnums of the Pinot Noir and also 3 magnums of the Giorgio, which is quite delightful. It's an exquisite blend and one well worth looking out for if you haven't tried it before. And if you haven't tried it before, then maybe Friday night is the place to try it, provided you've got a ticket. I think you might just be able to talk your way into Friday night still. Saturday, no chance, been sold out for a while. But this is the wine available. And if you can't try it there, then maybe head out to Pane e Vino when you're out in Stellenbosch next. Try some of the wine, try some of the food. Ask for a guy called Giorgio. Just make sure you've got a couple of hours to spare. Then on to bottle number 3 for this week. And finally, the full introduction to Mr. Mike Ratcliffe. The auction is run by a number of trustees. There's a great collection. Raymond Ndlovu, the Zimbabwean business tycoon, who's also got a great line of wine, the Black Elephant Vintners in Franschhoek, which he puts a lot of time and effort into. Ian Banner, the guy behind the Laureus World Sports Awards and Laureus Foundation, together with Johan Rupert, he started that off, and he himself is a wonderful philanthropist. Ken Kinsey Quick, the investment banker, who's got really interesting wine investment space. First time anybody's done something like that here in South Africa. Paul Kluwer, Paul you'll know from out in Elgin, and Paul Kluwer Wines. They make some fantastic wine, and Paul is the man behind that. Wendy Applebaum, fearsome lady. I love having her at the auction because she terrifies people into bidding on the off chance my room goes silent as I get the auction underway. And then Mike Ratcliffe. Now, I've known Mike for a good few years now. He's a real maverick in the best sense of the word in the wine industry. He's a natural marketer, and he sells not just his own wine, but South Africa as a wine destination, South Africa as a wine producer, traveling the world, spreading the gospel, and doing an extraordinarily good job. Now, his life's changed of late. He bid farewell to Warwick, which was the big family operation, which he put a lot of time, a lot of effort into, and he's now focused on Vilafonté. Vilafonté, he works together with 2 Americans on, Phil Freese, and a lady called Zelma Long, who's a legend in American winemaking, and using a beautiful bit of land in South Africa, they have the Vilafonté. The Series C and the Series M are their 2 flagships. I had the Series M in the Emirates Lounge last week. Beautiful wine. It doesn't really need any introduction or talking about in South Africa. And so I thought what I'd try from the Vilafonté label is a wine I had a conversation with my friend Greg Sherwood about in London. Greg rates the Vilafonté wines very highly, as do most people who try them. They're expensive, but they're worth every cent. But we were talking instead about this, which is the Seriously Old Dirt. Now, it's a really cool name. And it's also the second label at Vilafonté, so one division down, so to speak. This is the Championship versus Premiership in footballing terms. And it's a wine that really then you think, okay, well, it's not going to be as good as the Vilafontés. But it's a wine that's so good, you'd never know, unless you did, so to speak, that this wasn't top of the range from the estate making it. It's the Seriously Old Dirt. It's America and South Africa in collaboration, and it's a big part of the Cape Wine Auction. Well, first thing you notice, as with the gold on that colour of the Capensis Chardonnay, here is just how deep and plummy the colour is on this particular red. And then you drink it. This is the 2016, so by Vilafonté standards, pretty young. The Vilafonté wines, the M's and the C's, have got decades and more in them. This wouldn't be too far behind in terms of the amount of time you could keep it, but already it's showing very strongly indeed. It's rich, it's robust, and it's got a lot of the characteristics of the 2 wines that sit above it in the in-house pecking order. So the Seriously Old Dirt you'll probably find being poured on Saturday. There's an extraordinary array of wine from all over South Africa that gets poured during the course of a very long but very indulgent and philanthropic afternoon. The Series M and Series C, though, you'll be able to pick up on the Friday night at the barrel tasting. It is the 2005, the 2007 and the 2011 Magnums, one of each, so 6 Magnums in total. Now, I'll tell you right now, don't go expecting a bargain because there are going to be a lot of people after this wine, but do go with the mindset that I think most people approach both the Friday and the Saturday with, which is we're putting money towards a fantastic cause. The bonus, you're going to walk home with 6 of the finest Magnums of South African-American winemaking collaboration we'll ever see. And wrapping things up, the big brother to a wine we tried, what, 2 or 3 weeks ago? We had the De Toren Z. This one's a little easier, it's just the De Toren V. Now, I'd love to think that it was named in honor of my favorite really bad television sci-fi series, but I suspect it's something more to do with the nature of the blend. It is a Bordeaux blend, and it is from the De Toren estate that's become well established for making small amounts of quite outstanding wine. Now this has got an exception. This is being shown both Friday and Saturday. I'll get to the Friday in a moment, but on the Saturday, it's one of the items I'll be selling at auction, and it's an item I suspect there'll be rather a lot of interest in because you'll be able to get hold of, should you be the lucky bidder, a Magnum each of the Book 17 and the Black Lion 2015. I think they're the only 2 Magnums ever made of the very, very, very limited edition and very, very, very expensive rarities from De Toren. The 2009, the Z and the V, I think they've got 4 Magnums of each of those. There's a chance to go to the Campbelltown Malt Festival. There's some very limited edition malt made in the Malbec and Cab Franc barrels, so something quite unique. And there's also a tour with Charles Williams, who is the winemaker down at De Toren, and some Henriot champagne and a trip to all sorts of things. You want to buy it, but amongst the things you want to buy it for is this particular wine, the De Toren 5. Now, the Z we tasted, the Z we loved, using the royal we, meaning I loved it, although by extension so did my wife, who drank the rest of the bottle while I was out the next evening and thoroughly enjoyed it. So I'll have to look after this one a little more carefully. Again, big Bordeaux style of South African red wine, and it's the space where, without putting down any of the other wines Stellenbosch does best, I always feel I enjoy the most when Stellenbosch really rolls up its sleeves and gets stuck into a big red wine. A big Cab Sav, as our array of 2015 Splendor shows, or the kind of Melas Rubicon, as previously mentioned, red blend that really showcases the best of a style. I think we do, in many cases, quite as well as the guys from Bordeaux. Just don't tell them I said that. So this is the 2016 De Toren V, to be seen at the Cape Wine Auction this weekend. It's incredibly smooth, which is the first thing I get, and I probably get it most because with a blocked nose and a sore throat, anything with too much acid is going to have me flaring up rather quickly. This is almost making me feel better. I don't know why my doctor gave me antibiotics rather than a couple of bottles of De Toren Fusion 5. Possibly my medical aid wouldn't have covered the case of this, which is most short-sighted of them. But it's a splendid wine. It is a collection of grapes just come together in their different varietals to make something that showcases the very best of Stellenbosch red wine making so well. So I told you what is available for the Saturday, what's available for the Friday at the American Express Barrel Auction. Again, it's a great collection. This was made for the first time in 1999, so there is the 1999 De Toren Fusion 5, there is the 2008, and there is the 2016, and then with that there is a bottle each of the 2004, that was the first year they made the Z/Z, also the 2010, good year for South Africa, and 2016 as well. So you've got 6 bottles, and that will be the lots, and there'll be a limited number of those lots up for grabs as well on Friday night. And it's a great night because you've got access to such terrific wine, tasting it and possibly buying it, but it also warms everybody up and gets them into the spirit of things for heading into Saturday, spending some money, coming away with incredible experiences, and having what is, I think, one of the best days of the year on the wine calendar. Darielle Robertson, who runs the ship with military precision, will have organised another splendid couple of days. And again, I stressed it at the start, but I'll stress it again. With all that money going to charity, all the costs are picked up by the guys at Nedbank and American Express. It means every cent spent, every cent I can raise from the stage over the course of the weekend goes to charity, and that's what I really love about this event. So to Dariel, to Mike, to the trustees, to all the team, I'll see you Friday at the Normal Foundation. I'll see you on Saturday at Buitenverwachting. Fingers crossed we go past that 17 million rand mark. Tough economy, but we'll do our best. Most importantly, can't wait to send lots and lots of money to some young South Africans who are the future of this incredible country. Cheers.